All right, Juan. So business has completely changed with this, massive pivot of AI. It's now embedded into the DNA of every business. And the models have changed in business. In the past, we had the business model where you had a good product, you knew what market you were going into, and you had really strong operations. But that's all changed now because it's based off algorithms, data, and advertising. So can you talk a little bit about the change and how that's going to impact business in general?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think first of all, basically business models have changed quite a lot because there has been a huge disruption. And technology is one of these huge habilitators of disruption as such. One of the things that happen is when calculating the target of a particular business model or product. So when you have a digital business, target is very important because you are addressing that application for that particular target market. And we have to distinguish between TAM, so total addressable market, and this would be like, for example, in applications like Globo, that are delivery applications, the whole world that potentially it could serve. Then also the service addressable market, which is basically what you really can cope. So for example, in the case of Globo, these are big cities in Spain, Italy, and some parts of Latin America. And also we would have service obtainable market, which is the actual share of the market taking away your competitors. So I think all these concepts are extremely important to create a digital business right now. And with algorithms and with the power of AI, we can definitely define much better those.
But the business models in general have changed, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would just also make a clear conceptual distinction between three different business models. So on the one hand, there's the product advantage business model. So this means like investing quite a lot of money and making a revolutionary product that requires a huge advance in terms of technology. So for example, in Apple, when you sell an iPhone, you have a huge margin because you are selling something that is really expensive. It has a good margin for the company, but of course it's a top-notch product from a technological perspective. Then the second one would be cost differentiation. So you can sell many things on a huge turnover, but with little margin. And then you can also have models like low-cost models, like for example, Ryanair business tickets, or you could have also other kind of low-cost like supermarkets that they go on this low-cost. And the third model that is more technologically oriented is actually platform model. So we all know Uber, which is actually the biggest taxi company in the world and no taxis. Airbnb, biggest hotel chain in the world, and no rooms. But however, these huge platforms attract quite a lot of people, and they spend huge amount of money to attract customers.
And of course, the value of these networks increase the more people that join. So this is the scalability, hyper-scalability, isn't it?
Absolutely. And also there is this Metcalfe law that means that if the platform grows exponentially in terms of the number of users, then the value of the platform is also exponentially scaling. So I think this is really important also for business that want to grow, because they need to attract a lot of users and grow in value. Very important metric is actually CAC, so the cost of acquisition. So CAC is very important because this is the amount of money a platform requires to attract you as a user. So for example, Uber, Cabify, Bolt, all these ride-hailing companies, what they invest is actually to attract us as customers. And this CAC is potentially really expensive because you have to invest in social networks and advertising to attract those customers. But yet another very important factor would be the lifetime value. So this is the money that one customer would use in all these platforms. So if the CAC, so the cost of acquisition of a customer, is actually less than the LTV, then we have a sound business.
Okay, so we're seeing a lot of growth with AI, but we've known blitzscaling. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think actually blitzscaling is a huge phenomenon. So in the startup world, when you inject capital in a massive amount and make these platforms to grow so much, there are huge investors burning quite a lot of resources. And I think blitzscaling also works as a kind of a moat in the economic way, that it implies that there's always one winner takes it all strategy where there's a huge ruling champion. So if you look at Uber, Cabify, on these ride-hailing companies, basically there's usually an oligopoly, so there are 2 or 3 per country. And usually there are some acquisitions also because only one can prevail. So this means that you need to inject a lot of money to make these things grow so much on the blitzscaling. But I think blitzscaling has also changed.
Oh, that's for sure. Blitzscaling is actually morphed into smart scaling. And it's really interesting, the concept of it, because blitzscaling would have been quite masculine, been quite aggressive, whereas smart scaling, it involves it's actually a lot to do with design, and it's a lot to do with intelligence. So you're actually taking an approach and you're looking at, what's needed, what's required, and it's a lot of design goes into, after you've thought through the process. Because also with AI, you're going to be learning. The AI learns about, the feedback. You cannot do proper AI without feedback. AI has to learn, and so this goes back into the design. So it's a much more intelligent approach to actually scaling. You're wasting less money for a start also. So this is a huge change because it's based on feedback.
Mm-hmm. I think this is really interesting, and also happened a little bit with the beginning of generative AI. So when OpenAI decided to launch ChatGPT, this took much less than other applications to get this scale. Like, for example, Instagram or Spotify, which got a lot of attention when they were released, they didn't have this potential to attract people like they are. So I think smart scaling is really a very interesting approach.
Yeah, so there's another way they need to make money is through the subscriptions and advertising. How's it done now?
I think subscription is also a revolutionary movement inside business model, digital business model. So if you remember 15 years ago, we were downloading like crazy MP3, we were downloading videos, and there was a huge problem of intellectual property. And this was a huge issue, and there started to happen two movements on the two business models that were quite disruptive. One was a Spotify that made a kind of agreement with the big producers of music, and then enable this kind of business model to consume as much music as you wanted, but paying for the majors, which makes perfectly sense because it reduced very much the friction. And it was very difficult to download all this content, but if you reduce the friction proportionally and you reduce the friction, you can make a sound business model. And the same happened with Netflix. So at the beginning, they were just sending DVDs. They made an incredible pivot, and we will talk more about pivot probably in strategy, but they made a huge pivot and they started streaming all the content with the rights permission and everything like that. They also created this subscription model in which you pay $15 and you can actually get all the content you want. So I think this was really important because subscription changed completely by reducing the friction and by making our life much better. And it's also impacting AI in the sense that you can recommend people what to consume, what to watch. I think this is important.
Yeah, but this is all to do with behavior, and it's the insight that they now, AI knows more about us than we actually know about ourselves. So you apply this to marketing, it's kind of scary. It's almost like, it's almost like having a crystal ball and knowing exactly what you want and what you like. So yeah, we can expect, just very, very precise algorithms targeted to the individual.
Yeah.